friends, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to you all. Thank you all for joining us this essential MBA training on mastering contract for mega project and transaction. We're actually really thrilled that we had over 5,000 participants.
How did she get unmuted?
Leonard Silk, Leonard
He's
Seniors.
muted. Nobody's hearing how.
What about now? Can you hear me now? Am I still muted? Okay, you can hear me. Oh, that's nice. Lovely. Okay. Honorable judges, Leonard Silk, Leonard Seniors, Leonard Friends, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us for this essential MBA ICLE training on mastering contracts for mega projects and transactions. We're actually thrilled for the incredible response. We had over 5,000 participants for this session. And right now, I can see participants flooding in, and we'll also be live streaming to other platforms too, basically to our YouTube page. So for those of us joining in via YouTube, you can as well just hit the subscribe button. We'll be glad to have you on board with us. How enthusiastic everybody is in this critical importance of the subject matter we are discussing today. This training promises to be highly educational, and we have gathered learning minds from across the legal, commercial, supply chain, project management spectrum to unlock practical tools and strategic approach needed to draft, negotiate, and to manage contracts for large-scale and high-value transactions. Now, the need for this expertise is actually paramount. And if we talk about the case of P&ID, for instance, it exposes critical national gaps in the management and litigation of complex international commercial agreements. The shortcomings often rooted in deficient legal drafting, negotiation, inadequate administrative oversight also. Now, to this end, to address this vulnerability, we founded a Center for Complex Contracts, Projects, and Trans Specialists. And in the UK and in Nigeria as the first African institute of its kind. Now, CCPTS delivers targeted training and research that strengthens national capacity in complex contract management. Aberdeen Commercial, as we are called, is a strategic legal commercial consultancy with African roots and global outlook. We deliver specialized training, advisory services, and system development across the complex legal, regulatory, and transactional matters. Our work equips legal, finance, procurement, and project professionals to negotiate, administer, and litigate high-level contracts across sector like the construction, technology, healthcare, and also PPPs. We are available to support law firms through our General Counsel Support Center in specific area of law practice. Now, we have successfully collaborated with some law firms such as GE Alliance and Co. We have also collaborated with MJ Newman and Partners LLP. We have collaborated with Falashade Ali and Associate Legal Practitioners and also arbitrators. We have also collaborated with Abba Babalola and Co., Preston and Grace, Kingswell, and other really high value law firms. Now, our training offers different levels, up to 5 levels of training, available both online and in person, including a master class level training in concert with the University of Aberdeen. And we encourage those interested in our training and or in our advisory services, so please reach us via the email displayed for more information. If you want more information, if you're interested in any of these services, please reach us via the email displayed now. And we encourage active participation in this training webinar today. Please submit your questions via the chat room, and we are going to collate the questions, and during the dedicated Q&A segments, your questions will be answered. Okay, so right now, without further ado, we are quickly going to introduce our first speaker. But before we do that, let's look at the profile of our first speaker. Okay, our first speaker is Dr. Mark Osa-Egion. And Dr. Mark is the CEO and Chief Strategist of Aberdeen Strategies Solution and System. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of network glitches here. And me, please. All right, I'm back online. Sorry for that. So Dr. Mark Osa-Egion is the Chief Strategist and the CEO of Aberdeen Strategies and Systems Solution. And is also the CEO of Aberdeen Commercial Energy Services, that's in UK, and Oil and Mineral for Good Global Forum. Dr. Mark is a fellow and a lecturer of the Aberdeen University Law in Scotland, UK. Dr. Mark Osa-Egion is an international lawyer, commercial negotiator, corporate executive consultant to government and multinational operations, with more than 25 years experience, of which over 17 years extensive legal and executive leadership experience with Shell Group across many jurisdictions. Dr. Mark was in private legal practice before joining Shell in 1996. He has had extensive international experience working with Shell out of Nigeria to regions such as the United Kingdom and North Sea region, Kazakhstan, and Shell Group headquarters in Netherlands. From 2007 to 2010, Mark was the managing counsel for Shell Company in Kazakhstan and counsel for Shell in 2 years record renegotiation of the Kazakhstan field contract and venture arrangement. This is the largest and most complex oil field development in the world. Dr. Mark is very passionate about strategic contracting and industry best practices as it concerns contracting and procurement. As a senior management counsel in SPDC, Dr. Mark was amongst the team of counsel who created the contract and procurement policy document SPDC uses till date. He was also one of the few representatives from Shell who attended the symposium for the institution of the Bureau of Public Procurement and suggested training measures to Shell to sponsor BPP. Dr. Mark led the commencement of the postgraduate course Oil and Mineral for Good at the University of Aberdeen Energy Law Center. Dr. Mark's purview of expertise includes but not limited to oil and gas transaction, acquisitions and divestments, capital projects, commercial contracting and procurement, dispute avoidance, arbitration, public interest law, and the good of use of natural resources, decommissioning, regulation, compliance, and assurance. Dr. Mark was awarded a joint doctorate on the evolution of international law on the decommissioning of offshore oil and gas installation by Southampton Solent University and Northern Trent University. Dr. Mark was for many years on the distinguished faculty of Pregel CEELI AB Institute program for judges and juries from the former Soviet Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome Dr. Mark to give his first training. Dr. Mark, you're very much welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the introduction and what a great opportunity to speak with our learned friends and colleagues. So I'm going first this afternoon, and after that, one of our very dear colleagues, Dorothy, will be speaking after. So thank you all so much. I think Florence has done a lot of the and should I call it, a lot of the projection announcements. So we're going to go straight into today's subject, and I'm going to share my screen. I hope my screen comes up in a bit. Yes. So great to be here. Great to be here today. And I'm going to, yeah, okay, that's it. Here we go. Right, so the subject is very clear, how to master the contracts for major projects and transactions. I think Florence has already spoken a lot about myself, but yeah, generally, yes, this is one of the areas in which, by God's grace, we are leading experts in the world, and because of some of the things that have been happening, it's been our push to replicate this kind of knowledge and specialty, not just Nigeria, but across Africa. Because one of the things I saw working globally around the world was that the capacity for major contracts and projects, mega, in our part of the world is significantly lower than compared to what happens in the rest of the world. And so in a unique way, it turned out to be providential. The PNID case actually validated what we have been working on for the past good many years to try and develop this capacity in our part of the world. So that's what we're doing. In terms of the focus, we're looking at the world of mega projects and contracts and why are projects prone to fail. And so for us as lawyers and other colleagues, it's not only lawyers that make contracts fail or succeed. Obviously, we have other disciplines involved, procurement, project management, and commercial people to a certain extent. Of course, leadership in every case. So part of what we've been working on is to be able to create this level of expertise amongst ourselves, and particularly amongst lawyers. So let's look first and say, when we look at the whole litany of failed projects in Nigeria, it's incredible. It's some of these videos are there. I will send you this link to these videos. You see a list of projects, failed projects in Nigeria and Africa. It's just gigantic. The list is endless. So we're talking about trillions of dollars of failed projects, abandoned projects in Nigeria and in Africa. And many of these projects, if they had been concluded, they would have changed the face of Nigeria and Africa. For example, Nigeria has been struggling with power for many years. Even if a few of the power projects had been concluded, we would have been in a better situation today, roads and all of that. So we have a whole list of them in these recorded in these videos. So the question I would like you to reflect on for a minute is, what are the approximate reasons for this failure of projects and contracts across Nigeria and Africa? What are the radar facts? I would like you to please use your chat room. What do you think are the approximate causes? And then who would you say are the most directly responsible for failed projects and contracts in Nigeria? So, what are the roots and proximate causes? So please let's use your chat room. One of my colleagues will be able to read for us. What are the proximate causes from your own perspective? And then who are most responsible? Who should take the approximate blame for failed projects and contracts? Yes. So I'll leave you to think about it just for half a minute, yeah, and to reflect on this because it's important so that we can set the scene correctly. Um, if we don't know what the root cause of an issue is, we may not have the right diagnosis for it. The doctors can teach us that, right? So, if in one of the number of studies have been made as to what of these root causes, so you see many of them. But when you go to some of the works we've seen, they have analyzed this. This is from the engineering perspective, and these are the reasons the engineers have given. Engineers have given in from above studies: delay, lack of experience. Please take note of that. Lack of experience, adversarial relationship between contractors, unforeseen site conditions, unrealistic expectations, and on and on and on. So this is what the engineers are saying from their own perspective. Now, since we are the lawyers and we're the ones who write the contracts, or at least responsible for the contract, even if you didn't write it, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for it. What would we say are the reasons from a legal and contractual perspective, for the reason why we have so many failed projects and contracts in our part of the world? Yeah. So, what blame should we attribute to lawyers and contract writers? What role should we take? Endless disputes, court cases, injunctions, adverse claims, legal disputes. And meanwhile, the projects don't get constructed, projects never got completed. So, what are these? I'd like to hear from what some of our colleagues or some of us going in the chat room. So I'm just looking at the chat room here. So somebody said poor definition of scope of work, project deliverables, poor project management, poor contract drafting. Thank you for that. Need for expert advice. Okay, thank you. Need for expert advice. Okay, lack of expertise. Thank you so much. We're going to come back to that a lot. Lack of project expertise, because what we're trying to do, part of outcome of this, is to encourage those who want to become experts in this discipline of law. I'm introducing to you that there's a special discipline for law practice. Who does want to become experts in it? Just like you have arbitrators, you have litigators, prosecutors, land experts. There's also in the international sphere, at least in the Western Hemisphere, there's a specialty known as project and mega contract experts. That's what we're trying to achieve here. So I can see as well too a number of contract terms and contract terms and interpretation. Okay, that's also fine as well too. Corruption, indeed, that's very visible. Unclear terms, poor management, absence of contractual fidelity, and okay. Thank you so much. So like we say, like we go ahead now and begin to look at the reasons. Now we know that that lead lawyers are part of the reason why we have failed projects and contracts in Nigeria. We lawyers are part of that reason, because at the end of the day, as the lawyers are the one who write the contracts. So we can almost blame the lawyers as being the most proximate, because where they may have been other issues and failures, but at the end of the day, the last person, as it were, who pulls all the contracts together, all the projects together, is a lawyer. And the lawyer and those who write the contracts. Is the lawyer that summarizes what the transaction is going to be. At the end of the day, it is the lawyers I would say are most responsible. And in any event, we're the ones in the room, so we have to take responsibility, for what has been going on. And so we're talking about what can the lawyers do? What should lawyers be doing? And those who are experts are doing that, both in terms of project conception, project development, up to contract writing, and then post-project, doing the construction implementation. And then also when issues arise, when dispute arises, what do lawyers do? What do lawyers do? So we'll go further. So one of the things we clearly need, and that's one of the things we have been working on, is that we need specialist lawyers, not generalists anymore, for mega projects. So for all other contracts, you're buying a car, you're buying a house, every lawyer can do that, largely speaking. But when it comes to mega projects, mega transactions, and mega contracts, you need specialist lawyers. So the illustration I would like you to think about for a minute: if you have a car, you have a very good driver who manages move vehicles. Now, the day you go and buy a plane, would you call your driver to go and fly your plane? Help me now. Will you call your driver to go, and will you take your driver saying, since you know how to do vehicles very well, I have a plane now, so please come and fly my plane. After all, you can drive cars. You won't do that. You won't do that. So it's the same principle we have to apply. If you're buying something simple, contracts, even a house and a car and land, most lawyers can deal with that. But you are building a refinery, you are building a dam, you're buying fleet of aircraft. It is ridiculous to expect that every lawyer can do that. And part of the reason why, therefore, we have this challenge in Africa and Nigeria is because we have not realized that we need specialists to do this. So for those who are interested, after today, we hope that you would choose to become experts in this field and carry on. Okay, so let's look at the first case study. If you go to Marina some time back, you would have seen this oil rig on the Marina. It's the first case study of why contracts fail, and also what do you do even when contracts are failed, when you have disputes. How you also manage a dispute is important. When you're a specialist contract lawyer, you are looking at the beginning from the end and the end from the beginning. So even when you have to anticipate what can go wrong from the beginning before you even start writing the contracts. And then you also want to, at the end, also, if things do go wrong, how do you mitigate what can go wrong so that you don't have a failed project? So let me give you at least 3 principles how to look at contract. Number one, a contract is a vehicle. A contract is a vehicle. The contract is a means of documenting the transaction or the project that's going to be done. So if the contract is not well structured, if it doesn't properly define the transaction, then failure is almost inevitable. Secondly, a contract is a risk management tool. A contract in a mega project is a risk management tool. So therefore, if you are going to write a contract, you're going to define a contract. If you don't understand the risk presented by the project or the transaction, it's inevitable that the contract will not suffice on the day if it hasn't contemplated all that can go wrong and how to mitigate them. Another consideration of contracts: the contract is a roadmap. It's a roadmap from end to end, and therefore your contract also has to think about what can go wrong, and then you make a lot of decisions when things do go wrong, or and how to go forward. So obviously, this rig, this is an oil rig. The first question you ask yourself: what's an oil rig doing on Marina? There's no oil in Marina, Lagos. It's supposed to be offshore in somewhere working, but it ended up on the shore of Marina. So this is a case of badly failed project transaction, but also when things went wrong, those who were managing this went wrong. I don't know, maybe some of you here were involved, but I'm only using things that I was not involved and I have no connection with any of it. But this is just based on on online analysis. But you can see I could also interpret what had gone wrong immediately, because that means there was a dispute. There was a dispute, and then there was the banks will owe some money, and this rig was towed there and parked there. Now, by that rig being there, it has significantly harmed Nigeria's image as a as a friendly place for investment, because everyone that knows the rig will say, why is a rig there? This rig, from what I saw online, was on contract with one of the oil companies for $130,000 per day. So if when things went wrong, how is it that the lawyers who were involved, I'm sure they went to court immediately and all the usual things that we lawyers do. Whereas it would have been more profitable, to enter a settlement to say, okay, from now going forward, let the oil company pay the daily rate straight to the company that is being owed, whether it's a bank or whoever is being owed the money. And then, of course, you have to keep enough money to keep on running the rig. That could have just been the outcome, but for some reason ended up in Lagos Marina. A classic case for Nigeria to say, wow, this is so bad for the country. So long story, so that's the first case study. So with this now, you can therefore enter into the world of mega projects and contracts. What makes some contracts mega projects and order into consideration? Many reasons. Number one is the complexity of the subject of the transaction or the project. And when we say it can be a physical project like construction, it can also be a transaction like you are building a new IT system. That can be a mega project because it's not a physical thing you can handle, but it's a subject. So the complexity, the risk, the costs, and implementation challenges is what takes a normal contract or project and move it into this dimension of a mega project, a mega transaction for which you need a mega contract. So that's one of the considerations. What else? Like we said, the complexity, the challenges of actually implementing it. And then you can have a lot of technical, non-technical, all kinds of different risk eventuating, and those can then elevate a contract from a normal contract, a normal project, a normal transaction to mega. So you can look at some of the factors we put in there. Very high values in many projects. You're talking about literally millions and billions of naira or dollars, as the case may be. I have the privilege of working on projects of $18 billion, $100 billion, all across in the world. And then another factor is the duration can be lengthy. It could take maybe 5 years, 10 years in some cases to finish up a project. And it can be technically challenging. You can have frontier locations. You can have multiple locations. You can have multiple jurisdictions, multiple regulators, multiple contractors and subcontractors, suppliers, personnel, geopolitical risk, incredible safety and environmental risk and security challenges. You may have host community and environmental challenges. You may have huge project footprint on the ground. You have resource and labor, and then of course governments of all levels being interested or having an impact. So all of this will take a normal project, a normal transaction, and elevate it not just to medium complexity or high complexity, but actually mega to the very highest level. And all of these factors are things that we are supposed to deal with, lawyers are supposed to deal with inside their contract. I'm just people that put up their hands. Please, what we'd like you to do, if you have a question, please just ask the question in the chat room, and we'll take it. We'll take it at some point in time. Yes. So thank you, Charles. Thank you for raising up your hand. Please, you can ask your question or your comment in the chat room, and we'll take it as we go along. So all these factors, complexities we've just defined, have to be addressed in the contract. So this means that we need a different paradigm thinking for dealing with mega projects and contracts, a different paradigm. So in other words, we need, as lawyers, to change our game. And for the lawyers who are interested in this area to actually become specialists in it. You cannot do these kind of things generalist. And part of the reason why some of you had already identified expertise is one of the issues we have, because we assume that any lawyer can do this. No, that's not correct. In the rest of the world, it doesn't work that way. So we need to change a paradigm. We need to understand why projects work, it don't work, and then we need to move into this area we're talking about. Right. So we need to so we need to recognize there are different levels, complex contracts, simple contracts, medium, large, and all of these need to be dealt with. What sectors, can you have a mega project, a major contract? Oh, it can happen in any sector, literally, but there are some that are prone to have mega projects and contract. Construction, building an airport, building an airport, building a mega road, like you have that huge roads going from Lagos to California. Those are mega projects. PPPs, public-private partnerships, most of them end up being mega projects because of their length of the time and the complexity of the transaction involved. Procurements, you're buying planes, you're buying ammunitions and you can see, those things can be challenging. Infrastructure, ICT, of course, in the petroleum sector, you have tons and tons of mega projects and contracts. So those you can find all around. So when you think about major projects, then you think about it from a number of perceptions. We start from project initiation or ideation of goals and objectives. You talk about project conceptualization and approaches, then the concept selection, the approach the contract is going to take. I'm just summarizing this. For those who are interested, of course, they would go for the project planning, then the project planning, and then, so a lot of the times, you don't start writing the contracts. The contract don't start, most of us don't get involved until 5 or 6. But you are supposed in your contract to cover all that's happened long before it gets to you. And so therefore it becomes almost inadequate when you are looking at the contract and you are thinking only about it from just the perspective of the few things that you have been given. It doesn't work that way. You've got to go really way back to ensure that your contract is covering all of these perspectives. It's a complex thing. It's a complex thing altogether. So that's why in the world of complex contracts and projects, typically we don't think of one contract. As a normal lawyer, you think of only one contract. But when you're coming to this world, you are thinking of a whole raft of contracts. In one project, you can have 300 contracts. It may take 300 contracts to do one project, or it could also be 2 or 3, depending on the approach that has been taken. Because when you go into this in bigger projects, you can take what we call a turnkey, which turnkey means one contractor or 2 or 3 contractors do everything. In other words, and then they are the ones who now do the numerous subcontracts below it. Or you could have 5 contracts, or you could have 10, but if you have 10, of course, you have more. So in the world of mega projects, we think of not just of one contract, but we think of many contracts. How many contracts do you need to cover all the project from end to end? So when we come in, that's the first thing you're asking: what is the transaction? What is the project? How many contracts do you need? What is the approach? Because the approach will also define how many contracts you need. And so we think not the one contract with many contracts. We think about the whole transactions or how many. And we think that the contract is a vehicle. So what is the transaction is going to cover? We think about the whole life cycle of a project, not just the present contract. And therefore, you have to think ideation, project approach, project strategy as well too. So let's talk to the contract, the contract document, the one that most of us most of what has to deal with every day in our contracts. The question we want to ask you is, when we start writing our contracts, where do we start from? Typically, you start from either a contract you are drafted before you get it, or you dub an old contract, and make some amendments here and there, or you start a contract from scratch. It's also possible. Or other times you start from a contract that was sent to you, a draft that was sent to you, and you're supposed to work with that. And so what do you do? For most lawyers, you start with, look at dispute resolution clause, governing law, and maybe about 5 or 6 or different things. But in this world of complex contracts and projects, that won't work. That won't work. That won't work. Sometimes, the document you start off with is what has been drafted by the other side. And then you're asking yourself, okay, what's my purpose then in this? Am I just to review, dot the I's and T's or not? And on and on. So these are some of the questions that you get to know and understand as you go into this world. What do you do to even start from? And therefore, an expert in this area has to know many things. An expert, a specialist lawyer who wants to be specialist in this area has to know many things. You have to know how contracts are conceived, projects are conceived. You have to know the scoping. You have to know the contract model, the drafting. You have to know how to negotiate contracts. You have to know, how to get to the point where the contract is ready for signature and when it's not ready for signature. Sometimes we are driven by the client telling you we need this contract to be signed 2 weeks from now. We need this contract to be signed 1 week from now. But even when it's not ready, you have to be able to tell the client, sorry, this contract is not ready because there's so many things that are not yet right. And of course, the client will just, no, I just need to sign and or the other side just brought a contract. One of our colleagues mentioned, when in Nigeria, how they were asked to review a contract in 2 days. I asked them to review the contract today because the Nigerian counterparties were ready to sign. But when in the quiet space, then this colleague then asked the foreign counterparties, the lawyers that came with them, and said, why are you giving us only 2 days to review this? And that person then admitted that they've been working on that contract for 2 years on the other side. And then they now give our colleague in Nigeria, working for one of the governments, I won't mention which of the governments, 2 days, to sign. So you can see there's no way that contract is going to be is sufficiently protecting the right of the person that only had 2 days to review it when somebody has worked on it 2 years. So you can see clear imbalance, in the effort and the specialty that goes in. You have to understand how contracts get implemented. You have to know how to avoid disputes. And if disputes do arise, how to mitigate them, how to manage them. You have to know how to assess all the risks that can go on. So these are the areas that lawyers who are interested in this and professionals who are interested in this area would have to. It's not just lawyers, accountants, procurement people, project managers who are interested in this field. These are at least about 15 specialties that they have to get in about. So let's go further. We've talked about this a lot, why the contracts pray or succeed. We've talked about this some way, but let's go a little bit further now. I want to ask a question. Thank you so much, Okafor, for asking and putting up your hand. Again, please just go to the chat room and whatever questions and comments you have, we're going to take it. We'll take them at the end, but you can add the questions in now. The last 10, 20 minutes we'll be devoted to question and answer. And also your comments and reflection. We'd like to know your comments and reflection. So I'd like to go to your chat now. Have you ever been involved in a contract or a project that was a huge success? What made it a huge success? And have you ever been involved in ones that failed, didn't work out well? What led to that failure or success? It's time to reflect on that. What led it to either to succeed or to fail. Think about it for a minute. All right. So again, if they do fail, what were the root causes? Think about that as well too. And then, what should we stop doing? What are the bad things that, or should I say, impractical things, inadequate things that we do that we should stop doing? And what are the things that we should start doing to make sure we get better outcome out of our projects and our contracts? So please think about that, and I would like you to take a minute and reflect on this and go to chat. Remember, we're here. Is a training. It's not just a training. That's why you're getting 1 CPD point. So today, for those who are in the MBA, you get 1 CPD point today. So we need to understand that we're engaging properly. So what should we stop doing and what should we begin to do differently based on what the things we have discussed thus far? How do we make contracts work better? So think about it and please use the chat room for a minute. I'll pause for a minute just to give everyone a minute to reflect on this and to use the chat room. So just a minute. Yeah. We're just here for a minute. We're just waiting to get for you to reflect on the questions we just put on the table. Yeah. Okay. Let me read some of them. Yeah. So I've been getting some answers. So contracts should be delivered on time and in specification. Um, Somebody says, what things can make contracts project successful, clear terms and conditions, comprehensive understanding. Omowumi Adeleke, God bless you. Comprehensive understanding. Then failure, dispute over terms and conditions. Thank you. And then someone else says a comprehensive understanding. Okay, thank you. Capture all project essentials, delineating rules and conditions. Yusufu Pam, thank you. And then someone here says, Bello Tuko says, we have Public Procurement Act, which provide legal framework to regulate public procurement, but there is no codified single legal instrument regulating mega contracts being donated to public institutions. And interesting, interesting. So interesting. We'll come back to that question. Yeah. So someone here says, Oladejo says, lawyers need to acquire specific expertise and cognate experience in the relevant area of contract they are drafting. Very true, very true. One of the reasons why we are called learned learned is because we are supposed to become learned in the field that you want to become specialist in. Someone asked, is a joint venture agreement between private company a complex contract? It depends on the act, what is covering. It can be a simple contract depending on the subject. It can be a complex contract depending on the subject. Someone else says to do better contract, you need proper research and avoiding being pressured by clients. Someone else says, Oluwatimi, a thorough knowledge of the subject of the contract. Thank you all so much. Excellent, excellence. Thank you all so much. Yeah, so we carry on now. Like we said, we want to understand why contracts go succeed or fail, and also what we should start doing. And those who are interested in this field, what you start doing. So look at some of the reasons why contracts fail: lack of definition, poor definition of the scope, you know, um, you know, poor identification of risk, if identification of the risk, or if the risk are understood, poor allocation of the risk and poor mitigation of the risk, the poor commercial tactics. In other words, what's the strategy? For example, if you want to do a road, you can do a road in different ways. You can have one contractor do everything, or you can break the contract into like 3 or 4 different segments. For example, you can decide to use one contractor, turnkey for everything, or you can decide to buy the asphalt yourself, and then you have one contractor do the lane. So, what is the approach, right or wrong approach? And then, of course, contractor selection, counterparty selection. If you select the wrong person, then you are almost guaranteed to fail. I use the example of Julius Berger. If Julius Berger, I don't work for them, I'm just an illustration. If Julius Berger is going to do a road project for you, you can almost go to sleep, isn't it? But you pay hefty, but you can go to sleep. But if you go and hire Mr. Ajakala or Mr. Morocco, then you have to wear you have to wear the same trouser with him to make sure it gets finished. It may cost you less, but you may end up at the end spending less. So if you select a good contractor who track record and ready to pay the fee, you can almost go to sleep. But if you select an average contractor or a poor contractor, then that project may never get done, or you have to spend the same, a lot of effort doing that. What else? Poor records, scope creep when scopes keep changing, unauthorized commitments, poor contract management. Even after you have written the best contract, it still needs to be implemented. And the contract management, very crucial. And so what we say is you don't manage the contract. So you don't manage the contractor, you manage the contract. But you can only manage the contract if you have written a good contract. If you have written a contract that is solid. And of course, many contracts they are lacking the contract management details. Many contracts have a lot of gaps on uncertainties. And then, of course, unrealistic haste, unrealistic timelines, unsustainable promises. We're going to do this in such a period. So these are some of the reasons why contracts fail. Now, I'm going to this is a graph. This was some years ago. Some folks looked at 360 projects around the whole world. This is a global picture now, around the whole world. And these projects, each of them was $1 billion and more. $360 billion projects, 360 projects around the whole world. Each of them was a minimum of $1 billion. That was the threshold. $1 billion project. All of them were $1 billion projects. And when analyzing what has gone wrong, why the contracts were failing, and what was noticed, generally speaking, was that the rate of failure was about 40%. And when we say failure can mean anything from total failure, the project got abandoned, never done, or it was not done on time, it was not done on budget, and did not deliver the quality or the objective. So it can be total failure, projects get abandoned, never gets done, or it can be partial failure in that it didn't meet any of these three objectives. But when you come to Africa, the general average of project failure is about 60 to 70% in Africa. Now, if you come to Nigeria, this is mega projects. Now, if you come to Nigeria, I don't know, that rate is probably higher. Nobody has measured it yet, but rate is probably higher. So globally, it's about 45%. And you come to Africa, is about 60 to 70%. The African picture. If you come to Nigeria, I don't know what this is. For example, it's off the charts. As to, because you can see it all around ourselves. Yeah. So you can see the reasons why projects fail. Now, if we had enough time, which we don't have, but those who are interested, we'll go into each one of them in greater detail, and then also how to mitigate them. But so we can summarize some of the things, like we said already, lack of definition, poor definition of scope, and poor definition of poor identification of the risk, and then how to allocate the risk, poor record keeping, both before, during, and after. What else? Poor contractor selection, like we said already, poor contract approach or strategy, scope creep, commitment creep, as well too. Lack of certainty, undue haste, unsettled promises, all of these reasons are what leads to poor contracts. So we therefore see, what are all of these things? They're all factors. Scope, which is one of the biggest factors responsible for many failed projects, is the scope of work, the actual description of what is to be done. It's a very simple linear equation. The higher your scope is defined, the lower overall risk of the contract. And the lesser a scope is defined, the lesser the quality of scope definition, the higher the possibility of failure and also litigation. So very simple equation. Let's go on to the second case study, PNID. Everyone knows about PNID. PNID, of course, we know the case, when Nigeria was, thank God, was delivered from $11 billion. That was what the award essentially was. Had climbed up to at the time that Nigeria, got delivered, by God's grace and those who finally worked on it on that stage. Think about it. That was equivalent to 1/3 of Nigeria's annual budget. 1/3 of Nigeria's annual budget. So can you imagine paying all of that for a project that there was not a stone on the ground, not a block on the ground? It's not a question of a project was done, was concluded, we only argued about how much to be paid. Not a single block on the ground. Wow, that is incredible. Nigerian lawyers, I'm not talking about the people individually now, because this is just one of many numerous cases like that, both at state level, national level, and even at private sector level. We have that. I mean, we do a number of arbitrations. We work with lawyers in a number of arbitrations, and we see many disputes, even between private parties. So it's not only for between governments. And so we see. Look at what were the main root causes of this? Root causes. I will say what the judge said. The judge who gave the final judgment that delivered Nigeria, the High Court in London. But I would reflect for a minute as to why the project was a flawed from day one. It was supposed to do some gas processing, and whereas the gas didn't belong to the contractor, it didn't even belong to the government party that was signed up, but they didn't have access to the gas. The gas was supposed to come from a private oil and gas operator who wasn't part of the transaction. So from day one, it was a flawed project. It would never have happened because we only look at one contract. Whereas the question, if I was involved, it would have asked the question, the end-to-end question, where is the gas coming from? Then you have to make sure that they took all the 2 or 3 contracts, they are covered, so that it's like a puzzle. You want to make sure that all the pieces, they all add up together. Then when they add up together, they can say we have a contract, we have a project. Until then, it doesn't. Another reason why I feel, because this contractor, PNID, they've never done anything like this before anywhere in the world. So how can you enter a contract of such value and put Nigeria's interest in the hands of people who have never done anything like this before? So it was clear from day one. If anybody, those who were involved, we are not second guessing them. We're only just looking at case. We're looking at postmortem. So from day one, it was a flawed case. So this is what the judge said at the end. The judge what the judge said, and that's where the part that comes to us. The judge said, that's the High Court judge in London. He said something very interesting. Said something very interesting, as Robin knows. He said something very interesting. Number one, like I said, the arbitration had grown with interest. Award had gone to a billion. The court found that the claimant's approach was submitted by fraud and in a manner contrary to purpose. Now remember, what went to the court was the case from the arbitration itself. So we lost the arbitration. Nigeria lost the arbitration. Nigeria lost the case on arbitration. So the arbitration was what gave us the award. So it was almost as if we were almost gone for, but then thank God for the lawyers that actually came in at the tail end, and I know some of them, and I spoke with some of them at the time. They did a good job, and the job they did actually worked, and so very forensically they went to the London High Court, and the London High Court overturned the award on the basis that it had been tainted by fraud and corruption. But look at 2 major issues the judge identified as root causes. What the judge says, it was a complete imbalance in the condition of the parties that enabled the GSPA, Gas Sales and Purchase Agreement, to be in the form it was. Let's consider that for a minute. The judge was saying that there was imbalanced contribution. So the illustration I give, again, I go back to the illustration I gave. So when you are sitting down, by God's grace, I and my colleagues, we've done mega projects around the whole world. Typically, when you are negotiating, it's very balanced. One side or the other side is very balanced. Typically, when you are negotiating these big contracts, you have experts in the field. So the people that you are sitting on the table with, these are guys that have been doing these things for 30, 40, 50 years. But in this case, Nigeria, they took people that I don't know. I'm not talking about them individual. I'm talking general. That's what the judge said. Complete imbalance in the negotiations. And then the people you sit on the table with, they have a whole rest of many, many teams behind them that is giving them advice, giving them all of that. And so imbalance, the judge said. Secondly, experience, expertise, and resources are grossly unequal as well too. And therefore, as the judge said, experience in all of that, were completely unbalanced. And so that was the reason why we end up being what we did. So it's good. Federal government now, we're part of that, is not doing a lot of work. Federal government is changing this story. That's why we also said we need to bring this to the lawyers now. The federal government are doing their own thing, so working with them. We've set up this federal contract administration system. It's not just a system, but it's a completely different way in which federal government is doing their contracts right now. So federal government is ahead. I want to really thank our colleagues, in the Federal Ministry of Justice and going all the way to the presidency. They did so we sat with them, and said, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this tendency? Not just winning the case, while the case was still in court. So we need to sit down and say, what's the best way, to ensure that this trend is reversed. And so the federal government now has this system. Is this thing being implemented? So thank God to our colleagues in the federal level. They are going speed ahead, and so we're glad to work with them and support that. So I act as the chief consultant for that, and so that's going on well. So we have a number of about 7 or 8 projects within it to make this happen. So to make this happen. So that's some of what we're doing. So I would like to stop there, and then I will take some of the questions while my colleague will shortly be coming up to take her own session. So we'll take a few questions now, and then while my colleague is Dorothy is coming up, and then we will just thank you so much for the opportunity. I will come back at the end again when we have more questions and reflections. Yes, any questions for me to deal with? Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So before you take some questions, I'd like to announce that the link for the CPD form is dropped now on the chat room. So please, all legal practitioners, you can do well to fill in the form for your CPD point. Thank you very much.
Okay. We'll just, if there's any questions to ask right now, if not, then...
Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Dr. Mark, for that very good presentation. I think everyone found it very useful. We've got really great comments from that. So we have a few questions. The first question we have here says, how do we address a situation when government is at fault?
Okay, so
together. Okay. And then the second question was, how can a lawyer factor in technology with the rise of AI? How can they use that? So I think that we have a close question with that as well, that someone asked, saying, can we obtain precedent of mega contracts through the use of AI? So is that useful? Is that advisable? I guess that's what they're trying to find out. And then how can they factor in technology when looking out for mega contracts? Then the final question we have here is, what steps can a younger lawyer take in order to specialize in mega project contract drafting?
Thank you very much for those questions. I'll start with the last one. What can a younger lawyer, a growing lawyer, do to enter this field? So this field is open to everyone. This field is open to everyone. Like we said, it's new in our part of the world, but it's not new at all, globally. And so if you want to join in, we're going to show you later on, so we have training, but also not just training, but also professional development. We've created a whole center. Just like you have arbitration institutes and other institutes, we now created a complex contracts projects and center. And so those who want to become experts in this field, please come along. And we have 5 levels of training, but it's not just the training, but also holding hands, so that since it's a part of a center, an institute, then you are developing the capacity together as well too. So for those who are young lawyers who want to get interested in this field, you are brilliant. Please come in, and we'd love to work with you. For the older lawyers, the same thing. And then we work, like we said already, we partner with law firms as well to support the law firms who have these cases to do, or either they have a contract dispute which is quite complex, and we're able to come in and advise them and strategize with them, and their clients pay for it. So and also we have arbitration. We come in as experts to find a right way forward. And sometimes what we do, brings a greater, faster outcome. I remember one of the law firms in Nigeria, one of the leading law firms in Nigeria, brought us into an arbitration that they had. By the time we came in and did all our work and provided evidence to the, expert evidence to the arbitration panel, once, twice, the parties, when we actually did analysis and recommended how to settle, and the 2 parties agreed, and the thing it was settled quicker. And of course, the lawyers were getting their money quicker as well too. So that's also what to do. And if when you are setting up a new contract, you are working with, for the client, you can bring us in as well too. As to technology, AI, Yeah, also, first of all, when you go into this area, these contracts, special contract, you realize that they are specialist contracts that in some areas that you may want to start off with. That's one of the things you have to know how to do that, because it's almost impossible for you to know, for you to be able to draft some of these things from scratch. You usually need a team to do it. So that work is slightly minimized by standard contracts and precedents. And what they do is that those standard contracts and precedents, they accumulate the expertise of the people who are drafting together. And of course, they are maintaining it from time to time. So you have FIDIC for those who are you have FIDIC contracts, for example. You have NEC, NEC, you have JCT. These are different bodies of standards of contract depending on the field you're looking for. In the oil and gas, you have the Crane Logic contracts as well too. So you have and for the federal government now, we have designed federal government contracts. So federal government also have now standard contracts as well too, for which we are, which we have designed for them. We've also designed that for a number of other companies as well, so we have that. So yes, AI is, I'll call it like garbage in, garbage out. You must have a certain level of expertise to be able to use AI properly for serious things. Because AI can help you, but it can only help you to the extent that you already have expertise in the area. So there's no way an AI is going to draft a complex contract for you. It's not possible. There's no way. Now you can ask AI on the certain question, subject, or certain text that can help you with that. But an AI, even if an AI drafts a complex contract for you, you can be sure it's going to fail, because there's no way you can collapse all of that into it. So when it comes to complex things, only AI can only help you to the extent that you already know what to ask AI and where you need AI to assist you. If AI drafts a complex contract for you, you can almost be sure that it's not going to work, because it takes a lot of thinking, engagement with the issues, and to be able to draft that. So I'll stop there. I think I've answered those three major questions. I will now stop, and my colleague, Dorothy, would go next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark. That was very educational, and I'm sure a lot of us have learned a lot of things. So without wasting much time, we are going to welcome the second speaker. But before that, of who she is, so Miss Dorothy Ebo, LLM, MCL, OD, FACSE, MCIPS, MCLARB, MICNC, CMILT. Wow, that's a lot. Dorothy Ebo is a seasoned supply chain and legal consultant of over 20 years of experience in project claims management, dispute resolution. You're the one that's supposed to post it. Dispute resolution, procurement, and contract administration. As corporate claims advisor to Shell Company in Nigeria, she led strategic initiatives that significantly reduced claims portfolio and strengthened risk management. She also developed and implemented robust, widely acclaimed claims management framework within Shell. In recognition of her exceptional contributions, Dorothy was appointed Technical Authority Claims Management for SCIN. Her expertise spans delay-related construction claims, contracting and procurement, and dispute resolution through negotiation, arbitration, and mediation. Dorothy holds a Master's of Law in Construction Law and Arbitration from Robert Goddard University, Aberdeen, and a certification in negotiation from Harvard Business School. She is a fellow of the African Center for Supply Chain and a chartered member of several professional bodies, including Society of Construction Law, UK, Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, Standard and Competency in Mediation Advocacy, UK, Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliation. Following a distinguished 23 years career at SPDC, Dorothy now consults with Maltus Competitia Limited, delivering innovative business solutions across industries. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the distinguished Dorothy.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man.
Thank you. I do hope you cannot hear me well. Sorry,
yes, we can hear you. Yes, okay. Thank you so much. But you need to, for your slide needs to be a presentation view.
Oh yeah,
full view. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Mark and team, for a very illuminating presentation. You've covered almost all the areas, and then thank you for this platform. That enables me to speak on a topic that I'm very passionate about. So we'll start by the objective of this session. We understand the strategic importance of mega projects. I know that Dr. Mark has talked a lot on that. We're talking about projects of national importance. We'll discuss a bit more about that. Then we look at the role of contract governance, because as we'll see in the course of our discussions, some of the reasons for contract failure, project failure, just like Dr. Mark also highlighted, is actually due to poor contract governance weaknesses, not even technical issues, as one would expect. So we look at the various phases of construction projects and see where we come in as lawyers in each of those phases to support the project. Then we identify common legal pitfalls. So if you look at the scale of mega projects that drive national infrastructure and industrial transformation, it goes to as much as $1 billion. And that's from surveys done by the World Bank. These projects cover very critical national infrastructural projects. In Nigeria, we can talk about the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano pipeline. We don't even have to go very far. We can talk about the Dangote refinery. So we're talking about projects of that scale. And what is really interesting is that as much as 70% of those projects suffer cost overruns and delays. And you will think that these delays arise due to technical issues, given the technical formation of those projects. But no, we'll see that most of them arise from weak contract governance structures. So we see that a robust contracting framework can actually make or break a project success. So that's underlines the role we have to play as lawyers, and a very critical role in ensuring that our projects succeed. And if we look at Africa in particular, we can see that I'll show you the chart in the next slide. That as much as 8% of projects face weak governance. So Africa was sampled along with other countries. We found that our bar was so long and tall. We'll see that. As much as 8% of our projects face weak governance issues, foiling delays, disputes. And most of those issues arose from cash flow issues, contract interpretation, tender errors, poor contract drafting, force majeure, termination. We examine some of those critical project terminologies to understand how we should actually operate them. And even globally, as almost more than half of global projects encounter disputes leading to delays, long delays, and that's from Arcadis. Arcadis is the world-leading company that delivers sustainable design, engineering, and consultancy solutions for natural and built assets. So these setbacks constitute a major drag on delivery and return of investment. These projects are funded by investors, looking to get a recoup on their investment. So all these delays and all these issues actually affect, the profitability of these projects. So contracts are strategic enablers. They're not just legal shields. We're not just ticking box. Sometimes you think you just have to have a contract to sign. They're strategic enablers that define project success or failure. So let's look at Africa and the rest of the world in terms of contractual issues for Africa and the rest of the world. You can see that our bar is rising very tall there, unhappily. we have as much as 8% of our contracts in Africa suffering contractual issues, cash flow, payments, access issues, inaccurate estimates. Estimation has always been an issue, across contracts in the world. I mean, from my experience in the IOCs. So this really underscores the need for the increased knowledge and skill in this area so that we can effectively support projects. And this analysis is from HKA CROCS. CROCS is the ongoing research program of HKA. It's a global consultancy that specializes in risk mitigation and dispute resolution. So this is from their latest report that was released in October last year. It's important that you understand the various phases of construction projects. Sorry, let me put this away. Why is this still show? Sorry, my sorry, I have
the light is doing you favor.
Sorry, I need to go to my slide pack. I have kind of let me call it out. Where is it? View. Sorry, sorry, you can see my slide? Sorry, I lost connection a bit. So we're back here. So you can see my slide pack?
Yes, we can see a slide now.
Okay, so let's look at the various construction stages so that we'll see where we come in and understand, the flow. So the first thing is project design initiation. That's like when you identify, the need, for the project. And then from there, we'll go on to the pre-construction, where we create plans for the structure of the design. Then we'll go on to procurement, construction monitoring, and then project closeout. Also important to ensure that, we didn't cover it here, but closeout is very, very important. Okay, it's there really. Project closeout has to be done very neatly, ensuring that financial instruments are returned and closed out, and all other procedural requirements. Document retention, how long should we retain documents really? Generally in an EPC, it should be as long as 12 years, although statutorily just like 6 years. Release all securities, reconcile payments, were there retention monies that were deducted, defect correction. So all that, are the areas that, we support the project. And as we have seen, why are these projects? Why are they so challenging? Why are they so management intensive? Because of the sheer scale and ambition of the projects. We're talking about millions in investment here. We're talking about millions in investments, decade-long timelines. I've seen contracts in my former organization where they lasted for as long as 10 years. You find that some of these major projects, like the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano pipeline was started in 2020. Not sure when it's supposed to end. So this project's gone for a very long time. And there are multiple stakeholders, so sometimes their goal may be misaligned. In a typical EPC, you have the engineering contractor, the engineering design contractor doing detailed design. You have the procurement contractor, logistics contractor, the freight forwarder. You have the construction contractor, mechanical construction, electrical construction. You may have a lot of, now that we're talking about local content, a lot of, local contractors as well, who are involved there just to enhance their capacity. So you have a lot of stakeholders across projects that you need to manage. And it can be uncertain and change is constant. You may have unforeseen site conditions. How will you manage that? There have been cases where contractors try to dredge and then they encountered archaeological formations which are not anticipated. A lot of latent issues which were not visible, from the work scope. Shifting regulations, evolving scope. We're aware that recently we have new tax regulations. All that impacts our project, particularly on an EPC. If we have a contractor working in the in the free trade zone, because of the new tax regulations, they will have to go and look at their commercials and ensure that the new requirements are incorporated in their contracts. And for PPP, for public projects, we have a lot of public scrutiny. The public is interested because, I mean, they feel that the project is being financed from the Commonwealth. So they're interested in that. We don't have to go too far. We know the recent issues that Dangote Refinery had with the trade unions. So sometimes you can have conflicting priorities. You know, then we have social license to operate. We have, for oil and gas projects, we have the Nigerian Content Development Board that develops capacity of local contractors. And sometimes, you know, our oil producing companies are obliged to involve them in areas of work which is within their capability, or sometimes just to grow their capacity. They may not have all the skills. So there are so many stakeholders that are interested, there are lots of priorities, and sometimes they can actually conflict. So they have integration demands, the systems that have to be coordinated, and you run the risk of having silo working and fragmented supply chains if we don't make the effort to actually achieve this integration. So these factors can make major project contracts complex. So they need advanced legal, technical, and management skills. And that's the kind of skill set that Dr. Mark is alluding to, that we need to grow our capacity in this area as lawyers so that we can effectively complete projects and ensure that project objectives are achieved. So why do contracts fail? Just to restate what Dr. Mark had already talked about. Sometimes your work scope can be ambiguous. It's not clear. And we can see that that's one of the reasons why for contracts in Africa, that's why we had as many as 8 contracts in Africa suffering contractual issues because of a scope ambiguity. The specifications are not clear. Unbalanced risk allocation. How do we should actually, the standard rule is to allocate risk to the party who is in the best position to manage it. But we find that sometimes it's not so. Sometimes we have a very strong contract owner. We have a contractor who just wants to work. And so the contract is not balanced, particularly for EPCs, where our work scopes are not clearly articulated. We can specify the work scope and say including but not limited to. So who bears that risk? It's a contractor, because he doesn't understand and appreciate everything that he'll be confronted with when he goes to site. We have weak change and claims management. We need to have a correct governance, for managing claims on the project, because we don't want any interruption on that project. If you know the cost of the resources there, the cost of the equipment, the cost of the personnel, sometimes we have expatriate personnel. You don't want to have any interruption on that project. You don't want a standby. You don't want idle time at all. I remember, when we had a rig, the DS-10 supporting one of our projects, and then there was an issue around vessel support, and it was idle for some days. We know how much it cost us. I mean, we had to scramble to ensure that, we solved the issue so that the rig could continue to operate. Because if you have all that spread there, lying idle, costing so much money, it's not a space you want to be in. Then we can have misaligned incentives, and that's where we come in as lawyers. How do we structure our incentives in the contract? You can have an incentive. You can incentivize the contract owner to complete the project on time and on schedule. Then you may incentivize the contractor to complete the project at a lower cost. You can see the misalignment there. Meaning that if the contract owner wants to push the contractor to work fast, accelerate, the contractor will say, no, I can't, this will cost me more. I'm not going to oblige you on that. Then we have project timelines and budgets. Talking about budget, we have a lot of cases where we have depending on which side of the divide you're in, who you're supporting, you may find some contractors who just want to do the work it's called penetration price. They just want to bid to come in. They know that their price is unreasonable. They know it's unsustainable. They know they cannot execute the work at the rate they have quoted, but they just want to come in. And those are the kind of contractors should be careful about, because that means they'll look at their recovery strategy will be claims, spurious variations, and all that. So it's important to ensure that budget is tight, is clear. So if there are quotes that are not tenable, that are not reasonable. We weed them off from the onset. And timeline too should be reasonable. And the wrong contracting model. Let's look at the next slide. Because it's very, very important that we pick the right contracting model for our project. There's no one size fits all. We need to look at the project scale. We need to look at the risk, look at the control needs. Do we want to maintain control? Do we want to hand over control to the contractor? Look at governance, look at incentives. So I'm sure we know generally that for a lump sum contracts, the scope should be fixed, because all the risk it's on the contractor, because he has contracted to deliver a particular project at a defined timeline, and every other thing he sees is his problem. So important that the scope is properly defined for lump sum contracts. If we don't use the right contract structure, we're not going to, the project is set up for failure. Then we have cost plus contracts. That's where we want to maintain flexibility, where the scope is not clear. So what we do then is a contractor will go ahead and execute, and then we'll pay him the cost of the work plus the fee, plus a fee for his financing costs, for his administrative costs. And so the challenge there for lawyers is look at audit and transparency, ensure that the contractor is not taking us to the cleaners. Ensure that we actually audit his the cost, the receipts, and then whatever he claims he has incurred on the project. Then we'll have turnkey EPC for infrastructure. The AKK pipeline is being executed by multiple EPC contract arrangements. Then we'll have the design build, and then we'll have the PPP, which is really for public-private partnership, which really works for most government contracts. But as lawyers there, depending on who we're acting for, the risk around the PPP contracts, because of the duration, they're usually very long term. Particularly if they involve the government, which they usually do, we'll ensure that payment, the contractual structures around payment to protect the contractor. Because contractually, the contractor should continue to work at least for as long as 6 months without receiving payment. So all that should be factored into his commercials, because governments, that government payments may not be regular. And these days we have security, banditry becoming a risk factor in projects. And these are, eventualities we need to provide for, mitigations. Those are risk aspects we need to provide for. Trade unionism as well. We've seen the example of, the Dangote refinery. Trade unionism is becoming an emerging issue. Strikes arising from trade unions, because we see a lot of, unionization going on. Different skilled groups wanting to unionize so they can have a voice, so that they can be taken seriously. And fuel as well. With the regulation, fuel is an issue. How do we provide for that? If you have, so you need to have mechanism in the contract. That's where the legal provisions will meet the commercial terms. Escalation factors in the contract that provide for all these eventualities. If cost of fuel goes south, how do you have a mechanism in the contract to ensure that the contractor is able to afford the fuel he needs to execute the work? And that's why for most oil and gas operating companies, they actually bunker, they actually provide fuel for the operations, it's really safer so that you don't have any interruption. So let's look at some of the contractual issues that we encounter in projects. Some of them are delays and extensions. Like I said, on any project, delay is an issue. Delay, time-related issues, delay, disruption, extensions. We'll look at those terms, in the subsequent slides. So because the cost of the spread, it's a lot. If you look at Eko Atlantic City, for instance, so you can imagine the spread there, the equipment, the heavy machinery, the personnel, some of them experts. So you don't want any delay on that project. So that's something that every lawyer will support the project to ensure that there's no interruption. So that all these identified risk aspects are built into the contract from the onset. And that's why the Society of Construction Law, they have a delay and disruption protocol, just a full protocol dealing with delay and disruption eventualities. Then payment disputes as well, it's an issue. Most contractors, don't get paid on time. Contracts will specify 30 days, 45 days, Sometimes it's not, complied with by the project owner. And then the contractor, has to continue working. He has to, support his staff. He has to maintain his equipment. And most contracts don't have a provision for interest on late payment. Although at law, the contractor can get a remedy. He can get a remedy if he goes to court. But most contracts don't really provide for that. So you can get interest on late payments, or you can get the right to suspend, if he's unable to continue because of, delayed payments. Construction defects, how do you provide for that? Do we have, a defect liability period? Have we provided for deductions in the milestones to provide for that? Sometimes we'll do 10% deduction, which we set aside for the guarantee period, maybe 6 months, 1 year, depending on the project, so that we ensure that there's financial provision to remedy the effects of that project. Employment issues, sometimes we're obliged to employ personnel from the local community, based on local content considerations. Yeah, it's the same around the world. Even the trade unions as well. Health and safety and compliance issues. Is an EIA required for that project? Has it been done? Environmental impact assessment. Some contracts statutorily, we have to do an EIA before you can proceed. As lawyers, are we aware? Are we following up with that project to ensure that it is done before the contract starts? Environmental law as well, insurance claims. How do you factor in, insurance and claims and liability concerns? What kind of indemnity regime do you have in your contracts? Most oil and gas contracts will have knock for knock. That is, contractor, you're responsible for damage to your equipment, injury to your personnel, your third-party liabilities. Company, I'm also responsible for my own, for injury to my personnel, damage or loss to my equipment, my third-party liabilities. It doesn't matter who is responsible. It doesn't matter whether I cost the contractor's or not, he cost mine. The reason is that, like I said, project continuity is very key. We don't want any interruption on that project. So we don't want to know who is at fault. Just do your insurance, make sure those risks are insurable. That is your risk. Provide for it so that if it happens on the project, the work will go on. So for contracts, we shouldn't have victims, so there shouldn't be room for misinterpretation. And there should be a clear dispute resolution mechanism in the contract. We'll look at that when we discuss ADRs. Roles have to be clear. Who's responsible for what? It's good to track changes on the project. It's very unlikely that huge EPC contract will not have some changes along the way. I've seen contracts that have, we call it variation order. You can have the first variation order 1, variation order 2. I've seen contracts that have as many as 20 variation orders, and it happens. Changing regulations, changing work, scope creep, unanticipated events. And we shouldn't have one-sided clauses. We see that all the time. Sometimes we shift all the risk to the contractor because he has a weak bargaining power. He wants to do the work. He wants to insert in his CV that he has worked for Exxon, he has worked for Shell, he has worked for NNPC. So he accepts whatever you throw at him. But he knows that, you're setting up for failure because the time comes when he can't provide for all those risks and the project stalls. So risk has to be equitably allocated to the party that is best placed to manage it. So legal risk can shut down and know how to measure or enforce. So we have to have clear benchmarks for the project. I talked about clear contract estimation. It's an area that we'll continue to improve on. It's been very challenging, ensuring that the cost benchmarks for our project, the commercial projections are correct. So contracts can actually impact project outcomes. They are not just legal documents. We're not just signing because we have to sign a contract. They are tools. They are risk management tools. They are not for the shelf to sign and put on your shelf. They define roles, they define relationships, they define obligations of the parties. They allocate risks and liabilities transparently. For example, where you have many contractors working on the project, like when we have, we can have multiple EPCs working on in the same field. Do we have we assessed the risk? Do we have mutual waiver and indemnity provisions as between those contractors? That is to ensure that if anything happens, anybody's equipment or is damaged or personnel is injured, it doesn't matter who is responsible. Just like knock for knock, that's every contractor there takes care, accommodates that risk regardless of negligence. It doesn't go to the contractor who was responsible, just so that work can go on. So it's called mutual waiver and indemnity. Indemnity should actually be in every contract that have multiple parties working in the same field, the same site. So when we have this legal contract document, they give investor confidence. Because all these projects are financed sometimes from FDIs, and they want to see that there's a credible contracting framework for the work that ensures that they'll get return of investment. So that's one thing that legal documents do. So we have to align incentives to delivery and performance. So it's like our milestone, our payment terms, for instance. Have we ensured that every milestone, reflects the work done? Have you front-loaded your milestones? Sometimes we've seen cases where the first milestone that is supposed to be mobilization is about 70% of the contract cost. If I'm the contractor, when I mobilize to start and pay me 70%, I'll just leave. Because there's no incentive for me to continue with the work. Because the incentives was misaligned. It wasn't properly defined. And so we've seen it happen in some projects. Another just walks away because he smiles to the bank. He mobilizes to sites, gets 70% of the project done, and then just for him, it's not economical to continue to do the work. So although these are controls that we need to build into the contracts and ensure legal enforceability and dispute resolution as well. So just like Dr. Mark has said, specialist lawyers are needed. We're not just contract drafters, we are risk strategists. So we should train to become architects of project certainty. If we have a strong legal and contracting mechanism there, that contract will succeed. The certainty around the contract, certainty around the cost outcome, around the schedule. Because what we see is that many contracts, when they have claims and disputes, the cost is overrun, schedule is not met, and the overall objective of that project is not achieved. So for contracts, we look at procurement and contracting strategy. Very it's an area that we should also advise on. We don't have to go too far to remember what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we had even now when we have all these tariff trade wars across all these tariff regimes across the world. So we find that we need to define our procurement and contracting strategy. Do nearshoring, try and see how we can develop, local sources for the materials that we want. Because if it's a long lead item with a manufacturer abroad, long lead takes like 12 months to manufacture and bring it here. It gets caught up by trade tariffs and all that, which are not projected for. It can be disruptive. So just like we did during the, COVID-19, pandemic disruption, and we're doing now. So we need to be innovative around our procurement and contracting strategies. I've spoken about risk sharing structures, regulatory compliance. There's so many regulations these days coming up. The tax is the most recent one. We've also seen a lot in the environmental space. Building permits. Even trade unions and all that, ensure that our Nigerian Content Development Board for contract people working for the oil and gas industry, ensuring that the regulations which they provide with the issue from time to time are complied with. HCD, Human Capacity Development funds and all that. Financing frameworks, aligning legal and commercial terms. The contract is not static. We need to ensure that our contracts, provides for changing commercial and technical conditions. An example, but when the pandemic came up, because of the sheer scale of that, initially we tried to insist that, is the contractor's cost, it's an epidemic, audio social distancing, the additional protective equipment, go and take care of that, and all that, but it wasn't sustainable. And we had to change our contract terms to exclude our force majeure provisions, to exclude pandemics and epidemics. And so we had to compensate the contractor, because if it's a force majeure, there's no compensation to the contractor. So those are the kind of legal dynamism that we should bring to bear on the project. Dispute avoidance, dispute resolution, we'll discuss about that as well. Ensure that from the onset, the contract is set up to avoid disputes. And where disputes do occur, that we have a governance, a mechanism in the contract to resolve disputes so that the project is not interrupted, the project is not stalled. Like I keep saying that it's our duty to ensure that that project goes on. We don't have idle time. We don't have equipment and personnel lying around who cannot work, because it's a lot. It will just it will just affect the entire commercial projections on that project and the return of investment. So some of the challenges we'll see, no early legal input on some projects where we have a mixed chance to shape strong contracts. There have been cases where legal input was missed in the eventual contract that was signed. I think the contract holder, he didn't accept the changes properly. And an issue came up, which we couldn't rely on the contract to mitigate, and it cost us quite some money, because the provision that was inserted there by the legal team was not accepted in the eventual final contract that was signed by the parties. So very, very important. With due diligence, look at land permits, look at obligations. Ensure that there's no confusion around authorities. There's no confusion around who should do what. Standard templates should be used. We talked about, Don Mark talked about, the NEC 3, the FIDIC, a lot of standard, contract templates that are used for, large mega projects and APCs. Misaligned procurement, look at that material. Is a manufacturer, in which country does manufacturer operate? What is the lead time for that equipment? Like we saw in that chart, it's after the detailed design that we are certain around the material that's required for the project. That's when we'll start placing orders. So all that has to be factored into the project schedule, for long lead equipments. Informal agreements, weak enforceability and accountability. Our agreements have to be formal. And then when we come to the project as well, when we come to execution, who should instruct the contractor? The contract holder, contract owner, does he have the authority to instruct the contractor to instruct changes on the project, on the site? Or if there's a change requirement, for change, what is the structure around formalizing it? And what I always say, contractors, don't implement any change that is not formalized. If the contract holder gives oral instruction, don't act on it, because it may well be that he was not authorized, and then you will not get any compensation. So those are the kind of governance framework we should ensure that we have in a contract. Conception, that's where we identify, the project need, and then we look at the pre-bid. Also, where we try and look at, assess the risk, and at the pre-contract stage as well, we look at the contract model. What model are we using? Is EPC the best fit? Should we do cost plus? Then contract negotiations, drafting and reviews, to ensure that all, the incentives and requirements, all the identified risks are properly provided for. We enter into contracts. Implementation is important. And then the completion and the closeout. I've talked about closeout to ensure that we don't just walk away, ensure that document retention period is complied with. All the financial securities are released. Was there performance bond on that project? Payment reconciliation with the defect correction period. Did we issue ID cards to the contractor personnel? And have we followed up to ensure that they return those ID cards? We've seen cases where those personnel continue to use those ID cards to have access to the project premises and do things that they're not supposed to do. So those are all the things we should ensure that we follow up, with the project team around, contract closeouts. So we talked about this, at the pre-contract stage. We look at what scope, ensure it's defined, there's no ambiguity. We do the market analysis. Having defined the scope, what capacity exists in the market to execute that scope? And what are the risks, So have we aligned everybody around, that objective, the project owners, contractors, the financiers? the financiers, yeah. Then contract drafting, we look at the objective into binding terms, ensure there's clear roles and responsibilities and interfaces. And we use a tool called RASCI, responsibility, accountability, who should be responsible for what? Who is accountable? Who should support? Who should contribute? Who should be informed? Ensure that risk allocation is properly tied up, payment terms, variation, claims, and delays and all that. So is there a change order mechanism in the contract? Because changes will happen, they invariably happen. Sometimes they are valid. So there should be a mechanism for approving those changes, for costing them, and for implementing them. We monitor KPIs, we record risk register, it's very, very important. That's where we look at issues that arise so that we resolve them before they they become, showstoppers. Look at the risk every day. You meet with the team. It's called toolbox, meeting. Just look at issues that have risen and then ensure that they are knitting the board before, they start the project, the first controls. And then it's ongoing to continue to comply, monitor the contract. There are many tools we can use for that. We can use what we call a business process review. We'll go through the KPIs, do an audit. Are we complying? Are there things we should change? How are things going? What are the challenges? Are there identified risks? Those kind of things, yeah. So what's the legal checklist for pre-bids? Because sometimes you may support your client in posting a bid for that project. So is the scope clear? Is the scope comprehensible? The scope that your contractor, that your client is bidding for? Has it done a proper cost estimation? Like I said, many contractors, they bid low just to come in, hoping to recoup their losses via spurious variations, claims that have no that are not reasonable, so they operate a claims recovery strategy. That's what we call it, because they bidded low. Have you done a risk assessment, regulatory compliance? Red flags would be vague bid documents. If the bid document is vague, that's a red flag. If the budget is unrealistic and the client doesn't pay on time, those are red flags that you warn your client about and let him provide and then see how to mitigate those risks. So I won't dwell much here. These are project management focus areas. These are things that we should actually look at for the project. Communication is very, very important. Minutes of meeting. As lawyers, sometimes you may have to also review those minutes of meeting, because I've seen cases where we have to rely on certain minutes of meeting in court, and the way it was drafted, it didn't really protect our interests at all, because nobody took time. Maybe the engineer hastily drew up something and signed with the contractor. Communication is very, very important. We've had cases where on the project, the contract, the project, there was payment issues, and project had to be stalled, and the project engineer wrote to the contractor to exercise restraint on the execution of the project. If I ask all of us what that means, I'm sure we'll have 10 different responses. But what did the contractor do? He just went on standby. So he left all his equipment, all his personnel, and they just went on standby. I think for as long as 3 months. And we had to pay for that, because he said he understood that he should exercise restraint. So we asked the contract holder, what did you really mean? He said he meant that he should work small. I said, well, but that wasn't what you articulated. So it's very important, the kind of instructions we give. So lawyers pay attention to that as well. So I won't spend time here. These are some of the documents we should keep on our projects. Very, very important. When there are claims, when there are disputes on the project, some of these documents will support our position. It may even be at litigation. So ensure that even the original bid on that project, on that contract, although the signed contract supersedes the tender and all other documents that preceded it, but it's important to keep the original bid and all the other invoices. So ensure that we have all these documents on record. So so our contract set the rules, but we should ensure that we work collaboratively. The contract is a safety net. We should not combat. We should collaborate. So good faith is important. If we set the guidelines, the guardrails, we'll actually work collaboratively with the contractor towards the same objective, align incentives, and can ensure that the objective of the project will be achieved. So like I said, many contractors bring claims for all sorts of reasons. Some are genuine, yeah. Maybe there was an additional scope, and all that. Some maybe because you want to, invoke liquidated damages, so they just spring up a claim or just to protect their position. And like I said before, some people they've underpriced their tender, and the only way they can, mitigate their losses is by, springing up a claim and hoping that they can push it through. Maybe because you didn't keep, adequate records, and so I mean there'll be no documentation to challenge their claim. So all very important. Some also it's loopholes. They see loopholes in the contract. The contract is ambiguous. There are lots of ambiguities there. Which can be have different interpretations. So they just exploit all that. So these are things we should also guard against, so that we don't allow contractors to take advantage. So for our contracts, we must assess, ensure that our contracts are enforceable, and they are precise. The terms are crystal clear. Clauses are reviewed and risk assessed. Legal compliance and resourcing, regulatory requirements are embedded. Execution team is adequately staffed to meet legal standards. Risks are identified and properly allocated. And I talked about where we have different contractors working on the project. Have we looked at all the interface management issues? Have we ensured that our indemnities, provide for any risk event that may arise? Injury to people, damage to equipment, and all that, so that we don't stall. The project is not stalled because contractors are wrangling about who's responsible for what. Also, I talked about mutual waiver indemnity provisions in the contract. So contracts are living tools. They are not for the shelf. We should adapt our contracts to shifting risk and conditions. I talked about what we had to do during the pandemic. We had to remove epidemic from force majeure provisions, and and cost them separately. Otherwise, it would have been untenable for contractors to bear all that risk. Ensure that all teams are integrated: technical team, commercial, and then the incentives are aligned. Transparent governance. We've used the right model. We've not used an EPC for a cost-plus contract. We're not used a turnkey when we should use PPE and all that. And then we're working collaboratively, resolving disputes constructively, because there's a clear governance structure. Resolve disputes. So let's go deeper. Sorry, how much time do I have, please? Okay.
You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I'm so interested that I even got carried away.
5 minutes. Okay. So I'll look at force majeure. I mean, it's like I said, most of the provisions in the contracts have to do with time-related.
You have 5 minutes.
Issues. Okay. Okay. 5 minutes. Maybe Dr. Mark will give me another 5. Look at force majeure events. They're defined in the contracts, and they're for events outside the control and without the fault of the parties. We've just seen this illustration, this breach. It just happened, not the fault of either party. So this is a clear case of a force majeure occurrence. So the party will be notified the other party. For force majeure events, there's no commercial compensation. Only a section of time is granted. That's why I talked about why we had to remove a pandemic from force majeure, because contractors would have received no compensation for the additional COVID-19 regulations that were enforced at the time. Then the next one is somehow the way this thing is viewing. So this is liquidated damages, which is provided for in almost every construction project. It's a genuine estimate of the cost to the contract owner of a contractor's delay. That is, it's supposed to complete the work by 20th of October, but he has delayed the work, and we are now on 23rd of October. He hasn't done it, so it's 3 days. His LD liability is for 3 days, and in the contract we'll have a fixed sum a day that will charge him for these 3 days that he has delayed the work. So, but it has to be a genuine pre-estimate. If it is not a genuine pre-estimate, it will be interpreted as a penalty, and it will not be enforced in the courts. We've had cases where it's been challenged that this amount doesn't represent the cost of the project of this delay, and therefore it cannot be enforced. And then so the project owner has to ensure that he gives a section of time when he needs to. Otherwise, time will become at large and there'll be no fixed time to actually hold the contractor to account. So delay and disruption, I'll just say quickly, delay and disruption. Delay is a delay, time delay on the project. Disruption is not delay. It ensures that the contractor works less efficiently than he planned. Maybe incomplete information, information is late, you didn't get site access on time. So he's still working. Work is not delayed, but work is disrupted and it's not working efficiently. It's also a ground for a claim, but different from delay. So these are different incident events. Some are delayed, some are disruption. It's good for us to understand this as we advise our clients. If an event happens, is it a delay event? Is it a disruption event? I'll just go on because I don't have much time. So I'll talk about prolongation, yeah? Prolongation is the time that's associated with the extension of time. So if I extend the time on a contract, it's just time extension. But sometimes, contractor will get an extension of time, and you also get additional cost that arising from the time extension when the delay is due to the project owner. So it's called prolongation. That is the cost associated with delay that is due to the contractor. Mitigation, general principle, contractor has the right. He has a responsibility to mitigate any losses arising from the project. He should not worsen it and then sit around to want to come and make a claim. And the damage should not be remote. It should arise, from that incident. If it's consequential, if it's indirect, it may be excluded. So we had a case once where a contractor, he was supposed to do installation across different facilities. On one particular facility, there was community delay there. So he stopped. Instead of him to reassign his resources and continue with the next site, he just stuck around there and made a claim, and we threw it out. We said he should have, there was the opportunity for him to continue in the part that was not impacted. So that's the contractor had that responsibility to ensure that he mitigates his losses. So I can't see very well. So this is quantum merits, where the contract is not available. Maybe we're still talking, and contractor has to do some work. So this is just based on work done. So it's a fair analysis, a fair assessment of what is due to the contractor for the work he has done, because there's no formal contract. It's called quantum merit. So I'm here negotiations, mediation. How much time? So we know about this area. I'm sure many of us are using it. It's a fair analysis, a fair assessment of
those who will come for the training.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just go to the last slide on the training. Yeah. We know about ADR. So for those who are interested to become a specialist in mega project and transactions, just as Mark has said, there's a need in that area. So we have our claims digital resolution course, for it's been CPD certified. So it's certified by CPDs, globally accredited for high quality, internationally recognized. It's for legal officers, project owners, contractors. It's a gap we saw in the industry, a gap that we saw in this area. There are a lot of trainings there around project management, but this core claims management and this resolution, it's not out there. So we empower, it covers project management services, claims triggers, governance, and all that. So if you're interested, and I think we should all be, please contact us after this training. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Thanks.
Thank you very, very much. What a great opportunity. So let's say yes. Thank you to those who are clapping already. Please carry on doing the clapping. Please keep on doing the clapping. Keep on doing the clapping.
No time for us to reflect. Fine, we'll just stop there.
Yeah, indeed. So obviously we would looking forward to those who will be coming on later on. So we'll have some. Please go to your chat room and use the chat room for the questions. For the questions that you may have, or reflections, or just reflecting or appreciation as well too. And we hope that today has made some sense. We're just the last 5 minutes, so I'm just going to do the last 5 minutes. We do want to finish on time. Yes, we do have to finish on time. Yeah. So I'm just going to. So the first thing I want to ask yourselves, everyone here, is to please. So for those who are interested, some of you have asked that question already. So welcome to the world of complex contracts project specialists. So you've done like module 1 today, the introduction. And so for those who are interested, of course, you can then go much further as well too. So I'd like you to reflect a minute, and you can go to your chat room. What have you learned today? What have you learned today? What will you start using from today? What will you start using from today? What will you start using from today? What will change from today, or what should change from today? And then, have you decided whether to become a specialist in complex contracts and projects? Have you decided as well too? Have you decided? Think about that. Have you decided to be a specialist in this as well? So please, let's go to the chat room, and we're going to get some of the answers in a minute. So please answer those questions. While you are doing that, I'll just do a few more slides and we're done. So for those who are interested in this specialist, like I said, just like you have arbitrators, you have litigators. This is a specialist field in the world. You have some law firms in the world. All they do is just this. Some of them are my friends. Many of them are just us. All they do is complex contracts and projects. And then, of course, you have law firms and practitioners, insurance practitioners as well too. Yeah. So if you're interested in these, we already have just seen something about the claims management course. That's a one as well. And then we have the Center for the Complex Contracts and Projects and Transactions Specialists. So please feel free to join that institute, that center, and then the trainings will be there as well too. And then the other thing as well too. So we have 5 levels of training. Generally, there's a foundation, and today is the first element of foundation. Then there's an intermediate. You can become an intermediate. Each of them has a certification in foundation, and then you become an intermediate. Then do advanced, and then from advanced, you become a specialist. And then the 5th level is become a global expert, based on the trainings you have done and then the experience you have gathered. This is saying that you can go anywhere else in the world. And guess what? This is a field that gives you visibility everywhere. This is a field that you can do a lot of the work. You can get a lot of jobs and all that anywhere in the world. Is a global field, and this area is very highly sought after because there are not too many people who are experts in this field. So in the fields related to complex contract and projects, whether from a legal perspective, commercial perspective, procurement perspective, and also dispute avoidance. And we are working together with a number of law firms, as we have mentioned already, and so you could be seeing some new things coming out in the near future, in a very near future. So we also have a full, for those who are interested, there's also a full master's program, LLM or multidisciplinary MA, in Aberdeen, a full master's program, and that can be online or virtual. And we also have some relationship with Robert Goddard University, where Dorothy got her own certification from. And then in summer of next year, we're having a 2 weeks masterclass in Aberdeen, University of Aberdeen, 2 weeks masterclass. So for those also interested in that, so in those 2 weeks, you get a lot of. It's an executive program, so obviously, in those 2 weeks, you see everything condensed together, and you get a whole picture in 2 weeks as well too. So and there's a separate one for arbitration, which is in September next year as well too, which we are collaborating with another organization to do. So these are some of the opportunities that are there already. So if you're interested, all you have to do is, I think she will tell us how to join. To join the center is free of charge; doesn't cost you any money to join the center. And this, what you have done today, will be recorded, obviously, as one of the, and you just keep on taking orders. From time to time, we do free courses as well too, just like this as well too. Yeah, and so just like you have specialist litigators, specialist criminal lawyers, specialist legal draftsmen. I mean, I was trained as a legislative draftsman in Ministry of Justice in Ibadan many years ago. You have specialist lawyers, property lawyers. You have specialist insolvency. We also have specialists, projects, contracts, and complex contracts lawyers. So that's the field that we are in. So thank you so much. Every training we do is designed to enable you to work with it straight away. Like what you have gained today, you can use it immediately, so all our trainings are designed that way. So it's not theoretical, and you can see we're talking about from pure experience. So we haven't copied anything from the web and come and download it for you. We have vast experience, and so you will meet more of us and the colleagues, including both Nigerians and non-Nigerians, non-Africans, as you come to our space. So that's where we would I'll stop and hand over now to check the chat room to see what people have written. And Florence, what more do we have to do? Thank you for those who are, some people are in Zoom here, some people are on YouTube, and some people are on Facebook. So three platforms. It's a massive effort today. Yeah. Okay.
All right, I want to very quickly use this opportunity to thank everyone that has joined us for this training today. And also, please watch out for more insightful training from us from this platform. And also, you can please follow us on our social media platform on YouTube, where we will have this recording saved. It's a good thing for us to always fall back to this recording to refresh our memory. And so you can have these recordings on our YouTube channel. And please just click on the subscribe button while you're there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr.
If you also need training for your organization, need training for your law firm, if you want to partner with us, you want to, like we said, we work with some of the top law firms. We're also working with the LSF as well too on the African level. We're not just only in Nigeria, we're also working at the African level as well too. So please feel free to call us in at any point in time. So let's just take some of the comments. We ask you a few questions. What are you going to do after this? What is the one thing you have taken from today? We'd love to hear from you, because it's a school, isn't it? So what is the one thing you are taking away from today? What's the one message you're taking away from today? What's going to be different from today? What will you say to other people who ask you? What will be your summary to them? Perhaps your colleagues, your friends, and say, oh, you did this. So what is the one or two things you are going to actually do that? Please use the chat room. Use the chat room for that, and then thereafter we are done. The chat room was the one thing you are taking away from today. What will you do differently from today, and what should we together, do differently from a Nigerian perspective, an African perspective? I know some people are here from outside of Nigeria, from other countries as well too. Yes, we'd like to get that, and then so let's just go to the chat room and get some of that as well too. So someone has said it was very insightful. Someone from Kenya. Thank you for our colleagues from Kenya, from Mozambique. We have a number of people, because we work in many of these countries. We work in many of these countries. So we're glad to see you joining. Catherine from Kenya said, I enjoyed the presentation. I learned a lot. Key takeaways that contracts, risk management tools, and as a lawyer, I'm not just a drafter, but an architect of project certainty. From drafter to, thank you so much. What a great summary, that you're not just a drafter, but you are a risk strategist. I love that. This is a quotable quote. Thank you, Catherine, all the way from Kenya. Yeah, we do a lot of work from some parts of the Kenyan government and colleagues over there. So thank you so much. We like that. We're going to use your quotes. We're going to use your quotes as well too. Someone said Sam Sidin, a very interesting field to explore and a lot to learn and a lot more to learn. Thank you so much. And we also, for those who have also who wants to be in this field, we keep asking you as well too. Let us know. Let us know, those who want to be in this field. We would just let us know. Like I said, to join the institute is free of charge, and you get a lot of free training, just like today. And then, of course, if you want to go through get certification, then of course those ones are now where you now go into the paid for training. So someone said is interested. Linda, thank you. Interested in 2 weeks master class in Aberdeen next year. Excellent. I will be in August next year. It's a 2 weeks masterclass. It's going to be 2 sessions, one around April and the other one in Easter. So thank you so much for that. Wonderful sessions. Thank you, Aberdeen. I love that. I think lawyers are not just draft but strategists. Thank you for Chidima Uduma. You said that. UK said, thank you so much for the impartition. I've learned the difference between disruption and delay. Okay, indeed. Disruption affects work efficiency but does not amount to delay. Excellent, 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 excellent for that. So Muyiwa Olagoke having better position to draft complex contract. Until now, it was a general knowledge of that have you now know. Excellent. So give you the link. Yeah, so there's a link for you to register. For those who are part of Nigerian Bar Association, you get the link so you can get your free CPD. For those who are outside of Nigeria or are non-lawyers, you also get your CPD. You can get that directly from us. You can get that directly from us. So send us an email. We'll give you a certificate that you've got one CPD today. For those who are members of Nigerian Bar Association, you get that from the Bar Association directly. So Ruben is saying, thank you for this wonderful lecture, which is free of charge. Thank you so much for that, because we did it free of charge. If we're to ask you to pay for this is a lot of money for this, but yeah, it's part of our service to our continent, Africa. Part of our motivation, like we said, is we walked around the whole world and realized that in many ways we are not in the game at all. No wonder we're getting a lot of these strange outcomes, and so that's why we thought we need to come back and change the game, how we're in this game in many ways, but especially in this one. Oh, Professor Edward is also a traditional ruler. Thank you so much, Alagaya, Bristol Alagaya. Thank you so much, Steve. Your Highness, thank you so much for joining. He's both a professor of law as well as also a Royal Highness in the Delta part of Nigeria. So good to have you. He's a colleague. We do a lot of things together. And he actually also trained, part of his training was here in Aberdeen, PhD. Thank you so much. Gloria Akara, thank you so much. Said thank you for speakers and organizers, MBA as well too. She's from Port Harcourt, MBA. Oh wow, wonderful. I lived in Port Harcourt. I worked in Port Harcourt for many years with Shell, so it's great to know that. Great to know that. And then Bello, thank you. Says thank you for the wonderful and scholarly presentation. Right, and Blessing, thank you as well. So year one day says ensure to get clear terms and conditions before embarking on the project. Very true. Then Barnabas said key takeaway is mind shift, and we approach every project contract as a risk management tool. Exactly, as a risk management tool and as a roadmap. As a roadmap. It's also a contract should read like a good story book. At the end of the day, you should get a mental picture. When I'm looking at contracts, you should get a mental picture of what is supposed to be the end product. If you cannot see in your mind what the project is supposed to look like, the end product, the result of the project, then you are probably on the wrong track. Amazing lectures, very instructive. Joseph, thank you. Remy says thank you for this insightful and beneficial training. I look forward to joining the team. So you are joining the institute. Welcome on board. Welcome on board. Very interesting webinar Sunday. Basi Ekanam said legal red flags, not to be retrained and needs to be retrained and become an expert in mega projects and contract. Thank you. Welcome to the center. We'll do this together. Then Peter says for the insight on big contracts, drafting and perfection. All right. Oladejo says every contract is unique and a key management tools should be embedded. Excellent. Edward John from Oka. Please, can I have the module of the training? I mean the slides. Okay, we'll think about that. We're not planning to release them, but we'll think about that. We'll probably do just a summary. Then somebody can say the instance, I need to move from a mere drafter to a professional risk strategist. Excellent. Then somebody says, Nifemi, thank you so much. That is the most relevant training this person has done this year. Oh wow, it came exactly as I leave. It says because exactly he or she had just become a new contract administrator on an EPC project. Excellent, excellent. So you're already in that space, and now you need to join this center so you can you can have a clan. We become a clan, a small clan of contract specialists, mega contract specialists. Scope definition, Blessing. So the idea says remove corruption for contract negotiation, execution, and failure of contracts to be. Well, say remove corruption. That is true. corruption to remove it. But even if you remove corruption but don't have the expertise to do that, you still have a problem. So, and in fact, if the more expertise you have, we even give you strategies on how to mitigate and remove corruption. You get it. So somebody, Yakubu Afusa says is interested in the institute and paid for training. Excellent, you get that. Olusegun Suleiman is asking, how do I join the institute? Please, if you once you have your email addresses, so look for our email address. And then you would you can send us an email as well too, just in case we don't get it from the database that you have given to us today. But actually, we'll send an email to all those who are registered, and then you get more. Somebody says you can cage an unprotected party through your drafting skills. Excellent, excellent. Oh, this person's from Innocent Vehicles. Oh wow, you're from Innocent, the one that make vehicles, the top Nigerian company making Nigerian vehicles. You are the CLO for that. Excellent, 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 excellent. That's Honorable Michael Ugboma. Rupert says he wants to be in this field. Doris Wedo, very interesting. So exciting and opening to many fundamentals of contract drafting. Thank you so much. Yes. So to send us an email, just aberdeen@aberdeencommercial.com. Very easy. Somebody says you can tell me talk about, yes, you cannot manage a contract if you have not managed a contract. Excellent. Excellent, because you'll just be struggling. It is the contract that gives you the if you draft a contract where you manage the contract, and by that way you manage the contractor. By the time you're trying to manage the contractor, you're already in the failure zone. Somebody says is interested in 2 weeks masterclass in Aberdeen next year. Thank you so much for that. That's Basi Ekanem. Again, send us an email. Asogwa says, Ruben Asogwa, contract is not static, it's live. Excellent. Somebody wants to be interested in joining the WhatsApp forum. Yes, so for everyone that joins the center, you will be given access to the WhatsApp forum where you can get updates and you can ask questions as well too. Mubarak from Ghana, thank you so much. Thank you, Mubarak, all the way from Ghana. Very insightful program. So just to let us know, we are working with the ALSF, the African Support Forum, which is part of the African Development Bank, to make this an African-wide, working with the governments and the different bar associations. Olusegun said, how do I join the institute? I think you get that as well too. I think somebody asked, can a masterclass be in University of Lagos? Yes, we can collaborate. We can do that. So like I said, I'm also blessed to be on the faculty of University of Aberdeen. I also on many other universities, but University of Aberdeen. So yes, we can do a joint class University of Lagos if a lot of ifs is a lot of ifs, but it's theoretically it's possible. Yes, and then Lovejoy, you're also Pure Joy. You're also interested in masterclass as well too. Excellent. I think yes, webinar was very messy, Mayor, very engaging, and as well too. Odogun Stephen, you are interested in the masterclass in Aberdeen next year. Thank you so much. We'll get the details to you. Right, I think yes, I think that's it. Okay, so somebody said, where do experienced lawyers start from? Oh, so starting this journey is not only for younger lawyers. Everybody can start this journey. So what we have been doing with the federal government of Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria, the lawyers are very experienced, 20, 30 years bar. So, but all of them who have not joined, because we have a separate institute for the government lawyers, although they can also join this as well. It's called the FCAS Academy. So they have an academy for federal government lawyers because that is part of the project that we're executing for federal government. So they have their own academy. We run programs for them and all that. So they have that as well too. So many of them have started. Even some of those who are near retirement, they're excited about it because this is a new field, a new specialty that is coming to Africa. So you can easily, blow into this. So it doesn't matter your age of experience at all. It is open to everyone. It's open to everyone. Oh, somebody, Gbemi Sola says, Gbemi Onsuleke, all the way in Paris. Thank you for joining. He said, I learned a lot, one of which is that means of meeting should not be tribalized. Exactly. Means of meeting should not be tribalized at all because it can be used and it can clarify many things. Right, and then Pinima Keno says, I understood that major contracts projects can bring tangible economic advantages despite the risk involved. Thank you so much for that. I think, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are all done. So we sign up now. Thank you very much. Thank you, my dear colleague Dorothy. Thank you, Florence, and thank you for so many behind the scene. There are so many people behind the scene, behind the scene today. Thank you all so much. So we sign out from here. Thank you. Thank you. Again, please make sure you keep our, yes, please take this a screenshot. Please take a screenshot of what's on your screen right now. So you can use that to contact us. Take a screenshot. The email is there, and the phone numbers are also there as well too. So if you have any questions, somebody is raising their hands for questions. If you have any questions, please just as well too. Yes. Thank you so much, my friend Afam. It's not a, you keep learning knowledge. We keep learning, keep learning new things every day. New things every day. You don't retire, you refire. So for those who are even much older in practice like myself, you use a new field to get into. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll hand over to Florence. Florence, you have the floor now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It was such a wonderful
we can see your face.
time.
We need to see your face, obviously.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. It's such a wonderful time, wonderful experience, so educative, and we have to go now. We've already taken like 21 minutes of our time, which was very interesting. My face is showing here. So thanks, everyone. Please, you can reach us via the email and phone number that is on the screen right now. And we'll answer your questions and give you more information as to how to join the Institute. Thank you so much once again. Have a very good evening, everyone. Bye.